A bald megalomaniac man oversees a woman covered in blood as she goes into labor. He touches her aggressively while staring at the boy who watches the birth. The woman's eyes appear demonic, and she breathes as if she gave birth defiantly against her will. Eventually, the megalomaniac hands the boy the newborn child. 20 years pass, and a young man named Felix sits in his car, hallucinating the megalomaniac floating in the air, approaching him in black camouflage. A woman walks by, prompting the young man to exit the car and bludgeon her to death by hitting her head multiple times with a hammer before throwing her into his car. We then see a janitor named Martha who works as a cleaner in a factory with creepy co-workers. One of the workers, named Luke, comes and pees on the floor while she is cleaning and uses her coat to dry his hands. His boss comes in and tells him to have some respect for Martha. He tries to justify his actions, but his boss warns him not to misbehave. Luke then looks at her in anger and leaves. Martha returns to her oversized mansion. She browses online for sexy guys or girls. She then aggressively pounds a cake before devouring it with gusto. That night, she has a brief nightmare and goes to Felix, telling him she heard something. When he gets out of bed to check, he finds nothing. Then he confronts her about the nightmare, and she apologizes for lying. On his bed, Felix fantasizes or actually remembers being in church, asking God for forgiveness, when a beautiful woman catches his eye. Outside the church, he pins her to the ground. Then he unleashes full brutality, stabbing her in the throat and biting off her labia, spitting it out across the stockyards. When Martha returns to work, the harassment from her co-workers continues. Luke apologizes for his misbehavior last time. Then he asks her if she has a boyfriend, and then he proceeds to tell her that with an overweight body like hers, no one would pay her any attention. He calls her disgusting, then kisses her while her boss listens in horror and cowardice. He then rapes Martha. Her boss feels terrible about it, having listened to it and done nothing to stop it. Obviously, this is not what she was fantasizing about, a cruel letdown. When she gets back home, she talks to herself about doing what Felix suggests because she's tired of problems, and he's tired of her lies. Felix walks in while she's in the bath and notices a strange smell, making him think something's wrong. She quickly explains that she's taking a bath because her day at work was really dirty. Felix hands Martha her thyroid and diabetes medicine. Later, Martha pushes her food around her plate instead of eating it. Felix notices and asks if something happened at work. In response, she tells him everything is fine. The next day, Martha finds herself in a similar situation at work, with the incompetent boss doing nothing about it. Meanwhile, Felix murders another girl, seemingly at random. Martha confides in him, expressing her desire for a companion. Felix adamantly refuses, warning her of the trouble it could bring. She then hallucinates the whole scene again from upstairs, literally watching herself get told she can't have a companion. A newly assigned caseworker comes to visit Martha. She asks Martha about her well-being, and Martha says everything is going fine. The following day, Felix kidnaps a companion for Martha, almost like a pet. Martha eagerly anticipates opening her unexpected gift, but Felix advises her to be patient. When the kidnapped woman wakes up, she becomes terrified and starts screaming. Felix arrives, terrifyingly grabbing the woman, then ruthlessly cutting off her tongue before chaining her to the wall. Left alone, Martha tenderly washes her new pet and explains the different rules she must follow to avoid upsetting Felix. Martha then affectionately names her new pet Kitty. Now it's confirmed that Martha is a lesbian, seeking attention from girls online. Martha talks to herself, expressing concerns about her own eating habits while admiring Kitty's thinness. Later on, Martha becomes enraged at Kitty for making a mess and begins beating her. To further torment her, Martha forces Kitty to eat against her will, intensifying the torture. Soon we see Martha is fully pregnant, implying 9 months have transpired. She is wrapping a bandage around her stomach to hide her pregnancy from Felix. Martha spots social worker approaching her house and quickly hides Kitty in a nearby room. As they converse, the social worker notices something strange and questions Martha about it. Martha calmly responds, claiming it's just a little kitty wandering around. Felix comes home and talks to her about the pregnancy. He assures her that he'll take care of both her and the baby now that he is finished with work. When she asks how he found out, he simply points upward towards something. Felix begins to ravage Martha on the floor while Kitty watches in horror. The scene takes on a surreal quality, with black ooze, undulating sewer dancers, and a large snake. The suggestion lingers that this might all be in Martha's head, implying she's violently masturbating in front of Kitty. Martha eventually wakes up to realize it was all in her mind, while Kitty remains trapped, unable to flee as Martha lies unconscious on the floor. Felix arrives and questions Martha about the person who visits every month. Martha explains that the visitor is a social worker who comes to check on her. Felix, seemingly satisfied with the explanation, instructs Martha to take care of the pet as soon as possible. Martha returns to work to meet her rapist co-workers. Despite the trauma, she puts on a friendly face, asking about their well-being and even giving them gifts. She then invites them to dinner for a special occasion but keeps the reason a surprise when they inquire. Despite this, they all agree to come. At the mansion, the social worker arrives to check on Martha but finds her missing. While searching, she discovers Kitty chained to the wall and begins to set her free. Kitty manages to escape, but Felix captures the social worker and ties her up. When Martha arrives, Felix tells her to take care of the situation. Fueled by anger, Martha blames the social worker, saying, "You don't think you'd eventually run into someone like me? This is your fault." She then kills the social worker with heavy blows. It's a harsh but understandable outcome. Meanwhile, Kitty runs through a wind farm. Felix still catches her by car and brings her back to the mansion. It's nighttime, and Felix and Martha are having dinner with their co-workers from the factory. As they devour Martha's cooking, they compliment her on the delicious food. Then, Martha drops a bombshell, revealing that she's pregnant but doesn't know who the father is, hinting that it could be one of them. However, they dismiss her claim, accusing her of being drunk. Martha confronts Luke, revealing that he had raped her for months in the factory, while Flat Tire Face is into sodomy, and Jerome, the boss, likes to watch. Martha blames Jerome for not intervening, labeling him a coward. Suddenly, everyone starts feeling sick, realizing that Felix poisoned the entire dinner. Felix admits to adding poison but assures Martha that he only gave them a small dose so she could witness their deaths. As Luke and Jerome attempt to escape, Felix catches them and executes them, but he too sustains severe injuries. Martha begins to feel unwell and goes into labor. Despite the chaos, she gives birth to her child. Felix, on his deathbed, lies beside Martha before passing away. In a surreal moment, the megalomaniac briefly returns from a dirt pile in an unused bedroom on the second floor of the mansion, then the story comes to an end. If you enjoy this wild tale of nighttime antics, give it a thumbs up, hit that share button to spread the laughter, drop a comment with your favorite part, and don't forget to hit that follow button for more adventures straight out of the imagination.